Hey guys, welcome back. Godtear ATX. I'm Diced Ham. We're here for Strat Chat with my co-host, Mr. Fishopolis. Hello.
Hello from very tree-filled North Carolina.
That's right. You're in a new place tonight, but
New
no
place,
matter
new
where you
time.
are, new place, new time zone. No matter where you are, you're always here.
Always got to be on the hexes. Yeah.
You can't resist the siren call of Godtear. So tonight, I think we're going to talk about the construction beta scenario. It's obviously the most recently released scenario. It's technically still in beta. This isn't necessarily its final form or final rules, but it has been public for a while. It's been on TTS for a while. It was used in the most recent online tournament, the Clash of Worlds. I think a lot of people have played it, are playing it, and we thought we would talk about some of our strategies here, what we like, what we don't like, and who we like on it. So yeah, overall, Mr. Fishopolis, how do you feel about construction?
Uh, I like it a lot.
Yeah.
And I also think that it is an oddly divergent map in terms of player level of experience. And what
Mm,
I mean by that is I think it's an excellent map to teach new players the power of follower placement,
mm,
not just in. I think it's an easy thing to say, hey, my followers are gonna march on up and smack you,
mm,
or this or that. But I think that because of the close quarters of this map, like you can really use your followers to either backstop, to control areas, etc. And I think it's also really good for high uh, tier, high experience players because of those things. So actually, I think when you're teaching someone or someone wants to see these elements, it's really good because they can immediately see how powerful followers were, which I know when I was learning took me a
mm.
while. Uh,
Yeah, that's a really good point.
and then I think it devalues some of the big champs
Yeah,
that we're
yeah,
used to.
that's
What about
true.
you?
That's I yeah. Well, immediately I like it a lot. I think I took to this scenario
Hmm.
immediately.
Hmm.
I think the first time we played it, I was immediately in
You
love with
did.
this new board layout. It's easily one of my top three. Also a big fan of Quest and Knowledge, which I know not a lot of people like those. I love the banner scenarios.
Man, I
I'm
hate
weird like that.
knowledge.
I know everybody hates Knowledge, but it's so good.
I think
Um,
everybody hates Quest.
do you
I
think?
don't think
I don't know.
everybody
I love
hates
Quest.
knowledge. I personally hate knowledge. I think knowledge is my least favorite scenario.
It's
I
so
don't know
great.
why. Yeah.
We'll talk about how good or terrible that one is another time. But
Sure.
this one, yeah, I like this one immediately. I love the banner scenarios. This feels like a banner scenario to me, even though of course there's a lot of combat everywhere. Um, but just the different weights of banners, and then the way it's laid out with these little channels. What you were saying about follower placement, it creates a situation where I feel like followers affect the banner game here more than anywhere else. They certainly can, and certain champions like Grimgut are built around using your followers as walls, but I think it works best here, and that's a great point about bringing in new players to kind of see the power of that and the interaction between champions and followers. In particular, followers affecting. I think the banner game is kind of unique to this map.
That's a super interesting point. Followers affecting the banner game. Yeah, that's very true. And you and I mean, from the break when this came out, we actually we actually played through most of the hero
Yeah,
pool, just in this where we would,
immediately. Yep.
draft heroes, play them once, then they could not be redrafted, and just play just to try to see how all these different heroes played
Right.
on this scenario. And I think my biggest surprise was Helena,
Mm.
who I loathe, who I
Yeah, you're not a
despise,
fan.
who I could delete from the game. She's just so white bread. her like stuff is. I mean, not white bread like half tusk is white bread. She's just white bread like boring ass.
If half tusk is white bread, he's delicious white bread.
She's like a lame extra on Game of Thrones here. Like she doesn't really do anything. She's just sort of there, and she's gonna die in some scene or whatever with her shitty followers.
Yeah.
It's like how they wasted Ian McShane in Game of Thrones. How could you
Yeah.
do that to me?
Neither you nor I are big proponents of Helena in particular. Other people are, but we're not feeling it.
Right? But when
But
forced into playing her on
yeah,
this scenario, she held the day.
really,
Almost for you on that one.
that's
Yeah, you
true.
almost won it because I couldn't do anything to her with Pete, basically.
Right. Yeah, I think there are a handful of champions that are often considered lower tier. I know a lot of people on the Discord just did a tier list, myself included, and it's all opinion, so who cares? But often Helena, I think, was placed near the bottom of that kind of power rank tier, but she's one of the best on this scenario. I think she's certainly somebody who benefits a lot from this
Yeah.
scenario being in the mix. I think there are a couple other champions like that that are their stock goes up a bit
Mm-hmm.
because this scenario is in play. And there are others like Kaylin, who's often listed among the top. I think her stock goes down
Yeah.
in this place. But
I,
I think that's
I have a
awesome.
question
Yes.
or a thought puzzle.
Yes.
Could you just take maybe 2 seconds to think about this? Could you design a better map for Helena? If
Oh
you
man,
had to design a map to
that's a
like make
great
Helena Queen
question.
of the Hill,
That's
could you
true.
actually design a better scenario?
Is this Helena's dream? I did. I just did a little layout right here. So, for example, Um, this is a very achievable position, assuming your opponent doesn't have a maelstrom eating through you. You can absolutely get here, and if this isn't ideal position for Helena, I don't know what it is. You can't. There's nowhere to push her. She can just sit there and rack up those 5 point banners, and then turn two, it's a 6 point, and then a seven, and on and on. She can just sit there and harvest those banners pretty easily here.
Unless
Uh,
you get greedy and
unless you're
damage.
me and you do something really cool slash stupid where you're trying to crush some other banners. There's like a banner over here and maybe one more next to it. And I
Yeah.
was like, I can get over there. It's cool. I can crush it and come back and or just score over there. No, don't do it. Don't do it. Stay where you are.
Yeah,
Castle up.
yeah. I think you would have won that. You would have won that
Yeah,
game. Except you saw the two banners for your one,
I was so
and
excited.
you had Helena so locked down. But
Yeah,
once you put her out there, and I forget, I had some push of some kind. I
yeah,
forget.
right. There's something.
But she never even got close
No,
again.
yeah,
Once
you're right.
she got out of that position.
That was a disaster.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, to your point, I don't. I think this is Helena's dream. I think Helena uh, designed this scenario. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, maybe if you
What
only
would you
have
want
one hex
realistically?
on a
I
board,
would like.
right? And everybody's fighting over just
Everybody
that,
else
like,
is.
say you're playing
Yeah,
something like Queen of the Hill or whatever it
right.
is, like, and then that
Other than just
single hex.
yeah,
Because I
a
think
single hex or
Helena
just
would be
wall to wall hexes, just pure objectives.
nah, because then what? She gives you an extra point. It's
That's
like
true.
not useful,
It's
right?
just a bonus.
Here it's that you can just stack, stack, stack,
True.
and it's not really crushable because she's it's gonna be her whenever
Right.
she happens.
True.
So.
True.
Yeah.
So Elena, super useful here. Kalen, not so much. Who else? Who else are you drafting? Who else are you bringing if you're playing this scenario?
To me, I think Blackjaw.
Yeah.
We played him, and just the Unburnt Reavers have a ton of reach on this,
Yes.
and well, assuming you can just keep remembering that passive, but it's actually easier. Hot tip easy to remember the passive when it's on every single fucking
It
dice
was
roll.
constant. You had him. I'm dropping on the board
Every,
here. They had him at
yeah, yeah,
something like
something
this,
like
and
that. Yeah,
there was just nowhere
yeah,
to be that wasn't in
yeah.
range of fearsome. And I kept wanting to spread out. I think I had Jack or somebody. I kept wanting to spread out my followers, for reasons. And as a result, I just had garbage dice with all of my followers the entire game.
It really made that passive like super impactful. You
Yeah.
know, um, which is it's actually a pretty great passive, honestly.
Yeah, general, but here it
As
just
far as like passives go,
everywhere.
but here just the reach because of how sort of clogged up this board can get. Super good. So I think to me, I think plus Blackjaw is then usually within range, pretty much like on a hex of just being able to kick someone and get that extra action.
Yeah.
So I think both he and his followers really benefit, and his ability to clear the board and crush and this and that and stuff. So I
Yeah.
think that his
Yeah.
whole kit works really well here.
I agree.
I think anybody that can move through small followers
Yes.
and crush, right? So I
Yeah.
think
So
because we
you're
start
talking
playing
about.
more of a banner game, I think Kalen, yeah, there's my boy.
There's your boy. I know who you're talking
Yeah,
about.
exactly. We know what I'm talking about.
We know who we're talking about.
Skullbreakers.
Skullbreaker.
Skullbreaker's fucking great on this.
You love Skullbreaker.
I do, and I think that he has an ability to hold a lot of space here, and also
Yeah.
like uh, move through a bunch of people. So
Yeah. I mean, this is a great place, as we've mentioned, for followers to clog up the board and really, really impact movement in general. And Skullbreaker don't care.
yep.
He just goes right through.
What do you say? He
So
says, "Move, bitch, get out the way."
yeah. That's what I hear
Yeah,
when he comes by.
I just see
Yeah,
him
I
with
think
like
it's great here.
a backwards baseball cap on
Does he not? He's got that
and like a
giant
boom box.
club and
It's like I got this. It's second career, man.
Absolutely. Um, yeah, he's awesome here. I completely agree. There's nowhere to block him out, and everybody else gets blocked except for Caitlin, who is sad here. So Skullbreaker is the way to go. I do think, talking about followers, I think just about anybody, any champion that has a strong amount of control over their own followers is really good here. Anybody with place actions, that's going to include Mournblade with his ult, who I've thrown on the board here. That's going to include Wraith a little bit. I don't. Well, we'll come back to Wraith. He can do it somewhat, but Maxon I think is awesome here with the place ability on the Gearhawks, and I think Grimgut. I think this is Grimgut's favorite scenario as well,
You
like it is
love him.
Helena's.
He's your boy.
I Grimgut is awesome. He's my
I
favorite
mean,
Jabba the
you
Hutt
love him so
zombie.
much, you're almost bulimic.
I want to be Grimgut when I grow up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he's great here because that new spew can just
Yeah.
cover and recover these little side lanes, and his ability to get off. I mean, he can get off like flu spew pretty easily here, which never happens. Just because he's always in a good position to get all the wrestlings somewhere that your opponent doesn't want them to be. I feel like I use him a lot, but I feel like he often gets like you can put a couple of wrestlings where you want. You gotta string them out. But here I'm not wasting any wrestlings. They're all immediately useful. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm laying out a chain of them, and yeah, I think he's awesome here. Who else?
Just random side Grimgut question.
Yeah,
How useful do you feel like Goose Spew is?
I mean, not crazy useful, but I'm just talking about action economy. I think
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
To
the
me,
fact that he's able to
go
pull
ahead.
stuff off.
Sorry.
I think he's often in position to claim He won't need to new spew depending on what your opponent has done, and that lets you use your movement or your plot phase skills. And I don't think he's often in a position to do that. That's the only point.
Yeah. I actually just think that goo spew is like fairly lame. Because anybody whose dodge you really want to lower is probably not going to be hit by that.
Well,
And
yeah, it's just
then like, why do I give a shit when I'm like lowering a dwarf's dodge?
for
You know what I mean?
as an example.
Like that. I think usually the skills that that lower dodge have a higher dice roll than that.
True.
I
It's not the
mean,
best
but if you
skill
can
in
do
the
it,
game,
but if you can do it against multiples, right, and roll those dice like
yeah,
3 or 4 times, it does.
it does.
I'd like to see the math on that, right? Because you say, hey, maybe I have 3. If you can hit all 3 champs and roll 4 dice, even against some 4 dodge, and or a sneaky Peter Fenra,
Yeah,
maybe that's worth it.
yeah. I guess I was more talking about action economy than any particular skill, but yeah, I think he's great here.
It was just a random side note about
for
that.
sure, for sure.
You don't usually see something with that low of dice lowering dodge, because if you can
a good point.
consistently hit that, why do you care about their dodge?
Fair.
I mean, I guess dragon on the board or something.
Yeah, for your teammates. Yeah, but yeah, all these champs, anybody who can throw their followers around, anybody with place abilities, I think is really strong here. I think Mournblade is super strong here. Obviously that ults, but there's not anywhere good to run from Nightshades, and he can be easily crushing in one lane while he's planting in another. He lets you really spread out those constructed objectives to keep them away from your opponent, and he can always get to them. I think he's really good here.
I am going to maybe disagree with that a little bit. Because I think Mournblade and the followers are fantastic, and I think you're at Mournblade's claim action remotely 100%, no question. But I think the Nightshades are a little bit limited, because in a vacuum, or on an empty board, you can say, yeah, the Nightshades can be anywhere. We can, and everybody's so compact, and you can hold up so much of that. But also, once you kill those Nightshades and the other followers fill in the gaps, trying to get a Nightshade into a good position, I think, is difficult, because look at how many just followers are on the board here with just this amount of champions, right?
Right.
So
that's true.
Once you kill that Nightshade and it's got to respawn, and it's got to come back somewhere else, it's going to have trouble getting into an impactful place. So I do think Nightshades are great, but this board is so filled. I think that the Nightshades, while they can also be super valuable, can also be super displaced, and then become really kind of like a non-entity.
That's interesting. I mean, you can always be here or something, but
sure. But
yeah, you're right.
Look at how many followers, right? Like, as soon as I kill you and I move one thing into that, you got to respawn way back there. You got to blah, 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 blah.
That is something I've noticed in this scenario.
And they don't have the Gearhawk's ability to apparate into a cell.
Yeah, they don't have that place other than the one alt. He can move them, which he can move them, but it's still an advance. It's still a move.
That's the problem, right?
It's still a move. It's not a place.
Through anything.
Yeah. That's a good point. There is a lot of jockeying for position within these little side lanes, these little single open spaces with the followers. I have noticed that a lot. So I do think this is a place where kind of mass big AoE attacks from Maelstroms are really useful. Which is another reason Blackjaw's great here. I do like Fenra here.
She's your bitch.
She's a very good dog. But anything that sweeps up followers.
One of us has kids. Which one?
Though anyone that anything that sweeps up masses of followers is also going to be useful here because everybody's going to want to cram their followers into these little, roughly 6 hexes aside.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, big moves like that, and less so like Grimgut's ult, not as big. Titus potentially. I'm just talking about number of followers cleared in terms of like over a space. Luella maybe, but yeah, really any.
Luell's an interesting thing. I don't know because I haven't. So this is all very sort of new. I feel like I haven't played enough construction to just have a intrinsic database where you can really feel the ebb and flow of a game. Like, oh, I know when I like, you know how Quest feels after a while. You know how
Sure.
even knowledge or death or whatever, those things feel. But you don't have this is an interesting, because you can't totally tell yet what feels good on this. Like when you feel like, okay, I can give up this turn to get the next, and I know how I'm going to do that and stuff, because the point swings can be so dramatic from a single piece on this because you're stacking it up. I think
That's
that
true.
it amps up those swings as you like move through those things.
Yeah, that's a good point. I have played this. I think I played this a couple more times than you just because it
Yeah.
came up. I think I
Yeah.
played it twice in this most recent, my last 2 games in this most recent tournament. I think I've played a couple more times than more recently. So I feel like I'm starting to get a handle on it. But then that same kind of like sense of rhythm that you're talking about.
Yeah.
I do. The big thing that I've picked up on is one bit of placement. I always kind of feel like turn 1 is largely about positioning and trying to get into the best place to work from going into turn 2. I think these spaces, here's where I have Max in. I don't put Blackshaw on the other one. I think these 2 positions are the most valuable on the board. We're just immediately adjacent to 3 objectives. You got 3 claim options, 3 immediate 1x crushes, and you can really just control this whole wing, this whole side lane pretty well from either of those spots. I think that's the best place to be, and then control if you can, have your 3rd champion in the center here, duking it out.
Is there any? So okay, so say you're playing Maxin in this scenario.
Right.
What is the hex that you start to build up?
Good question. I think it is you want it to be, which is the hex you always want. It's the hex that's easiest for you to claim on and most difficult for your opponent to crush. Which is why I like this position, because it gives you options. Right.
So like
Where
if
do you
Max
go?
has to go crush and leave, so say you build up behind him and
Okay, so
maybe.
So you've got Grimgut and I've got Maxon, and you've just won turn 1, so I'm building up. I would probably go here because I know you're gonna have to use a boon to move 2, or I could go here, which would force you to yeah. I think I would go here, right? Given if this was your follower placement, these guys would assume they're there. Given your follower placement, I'd go there because it would take you the most actions to get to that. But yeah, I think that's why these positions are good. I always try to go somewhere on the side just because it creates value. Like you're not gonna, most likely my opponent is not gonna abandon that banner. It's extra costly for them to do that, especially over time. So just in that strategy that's always there of like, well, you might as well put a banner down to get that 1 point or that 1 step for putting it down, and it forces your opponent to like deal with that banner or grant you those points. I think this scenario more than any other rewards that particular tactic because as the game goes on, that 1 banner, if they're like, never mind, that's going to really stack up. and it's going to force them to do something about it, even if they are going to get to it. So I think just having it down is good here, and then just the back, whatever side you're on, these back spaces, just the farthest from your opponent, are always good, just to make them run
Yeah.
across the board.
I think it's I have seen it be dangerous to build up some of these like outer hexes here,
Mhm.
just because it ties you to defending because you want to plant there or this or that, because then Max isn't probably going to go crush, right? So he's going to flame and do this,
Mhm.
which I mean, I think that you built up the right hex when you said that, because it's
Yeah,
a little bit more towards middle, but I think a lot of times the impulse or the desire, myself absolutely 1000% included, is to build it up to like, ew, I'm gonna have Blackjaw, special little fort.
right.
But then you sort of lose out on a lot of Blackjaw's main functionalities because
Yeah, he doesn't want a castle so much,
pillow fort, you know what I
right?
mean? uh, Whereas any guardian obviously is very happy to sit there and
Right.
splash about in their puddle. So I have another question for you. Do you
Mm,
think in this scenario,
yeah.
shapers are less valuable?
You know, I actually have. I played a handful of times, and I do have felt like sometimes shapers are weirdly less effective here than they often are. And I haven't put my finger on why.
Yeah,
Um, I would feel like this would be a great place for shapers because there's so
totally
many
agree.
options to get your banner down, and that's where you're going to get your bonus points.
100%.
Plenty of hexes to slide around, that kind of thing. But I've felt in a handful of games like shapers, who are I think a really strong class in general, and particular shapers who I think are very strong, Wraith, Lily. I feel like this sort of underperformed here. I don't really know why. I wonder if part of it is they're always very pushy. And I have a theory that maybe push effects are a little less useful on this scenario because of the layout of it. It's really hard to force somebody completely out of the action, where that's not always true, especially places like late game death or chaos. I think it's really possible to push somebody out of the action entirely and kind of negate their usefulness, ruin their action economy. I don't think that's very doable here. I think Lily can shove people around, but you're just shoving them into another banner, which is immediately next door, rather than out of the way. You know what I mean?
100%. And I know we were talking about this a little bit earlier, and you said, "Oh, I think Lily's good on this," and blah blah. Blah. I think Lily's she can be a little bit less efficacious here because everyone's so hemmed in that to actually push the people you want, you have to use both actions to push, you
Oh,
know?
that's true. So if
So I think,
you're trying to get Max's banner here,
yeah, I mean, so say you have the Gearhawk, you can move the Gearhawk
right?
uh, into here. She has to push two people, but then she can't move, right? Because she has
True.
to one
Yeah,
or
here
this
if
or
I do
that.
this, yeah, that
It's just
can block.
everybody kind of almost in a way naturally backstops themselves just in the LA traffic type of we all want to go to the let's all go to the battlefield type of thing.
Yeah,
This traffic jam, I think, where you would sometimes, I mean, obviously Lily can blow holes in everybody's stuff with just uh, some of her abilities, but she also, I think, has to use them, and then it's almost like digging in the sand, like right at
right.
the shoreline there, where once you start hitting that water line, it just sort of fills itself in naturally. It's
That's
almost
true.
like, well, yeah,
It's the
you can
same.
shove everybody one hex away from this, or you can shove that thing too, but it's also sort of so close that it's just gonna kind of come back, and you got to get right in there immediately.
True. It's
You
that
know?
same jockeying for position that Blade does run into a little bit. and half of Lily's kit is pushes, which are awesome. And I think she's really
Man, I
good,
wish
but
her whole kit was pushes.
just nothing but.
Nah, man.
Speaking of,
I wish those pushes were in the plot phase too, man.
that's true.
Half the time in the plot phase I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna really screw this dude up, and
Nope.
Here, have an ability attack. Fuck me. I don't want this, Lily. Take your stupid earth pancake and go take it.
The other shaper, we talked about Helena getting a big boost here. The other shaper who I think really has her stock raised by this scenario is Rattlebone.
By other shaper, you don't mean that Helena's a shaper. You mean the other low tier.
I mean, as Lily, comparing to Lily.
Oh, gotcha.
The other shaper I wanted to talk about. Sorry. Yeah, Rattlebone.
Check you out.
Neither you nor I are particularly huge Rattlebone players. I do think I put her pretty low in my tier list. She's just not one she's just not one I gravitate to.
Only because she looks cooler.
She does look cooler. But yeah, I think Rattlebone is secretly, not so secretly, great here. I think this is kind of her dream, just a little bit as much as it is Helena's, because she can really easily get in the middle things, do some really good crushing, have a ton of options for her passive, the Roll of Bones. You're always clumped up with somebody that you're able to affect with that, and all of her attacks are range 2. This is a great place for those. All her skills, call totems. As I was saying, anybody who can throw their followers around is great here. Call totems is a great way to throw followers around, really easily take control of these side lanes over and over again with that place action. And the other little sneaky thing, I think this board has the ideal position for everybody's favorite skill, which is the Cursed Round. Cursed Round, I think, the least used skill in the whole game, where Rattlebone can throw out 2 hexes. I think it's uniquely useful here, where I can just completely shut down a lane.
You're saying you want to play Traffic Cop?
With Rattlebone.
So fun of you. I love this.
No, I think it's the best possible use of that skill. I think a lot of her stuff is uniquely useful here.
That is a wild claim. How about you back that up in our game, which obviously we're playing,
That's true. We're about to play.
So you're so I challenge you. You have to take Rattlebone.
Yeah,
okay. Where your mouth is, Ham.
I'm gonna put my dice where my mouth is, and show.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, sure.
So show me. Make me a believer here.
Fair enough.
And I'll let you choose any hero from the ones we've chosen here.
Okay.
Who we think are pretty good.
Helena for you. Certainly. Okay. All right. We're gonna play this. I'm gonna take Rattlebone. I'm gonna run with this. It's gonna be great. We're all gonna learn something. I'm gonna play Rattlebone. We're gonna play this scenario. I think that's a good place to stop. I will. I'll post the game, or I'll post the game or some wrap up of the game somewhere, so everybody will know how it turned out. But I'm about to take Rattlebone into the field and see what happens. All right, thanks guys. Thanks for listening. Strat Chat on Godtear ATX. I'm Dice Tam. That's MrFishopolis.
Yes, sir.
It is. Have a good night and keep Godtear weird.